is available. And I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. I'm excited to welcome my good friend Patrick Thean. He is the author of Execute Without Drama and recently published his new book, Rhythm, which is all about how to achieve breakthrough execution and accelerate your business growth. It's gotten great reviews and has already hit number 17 on the Amazon Kindle Books list. It's also available at over 280 Barnes & Noble bookstores for those of you who want a physical copy. Today, Patrick's going to share some key insights from his book, Rhythm, with you to help you to achieve breakthrough execution and accelerate the growth of your business. Patrick, it's great to be here with you today.
Hey Ryan, thank you, and good morning, EO. It's great to be with EO members. I'm going to be doing a very short presentation, similar to what I did at the EMP program at MIT. So let me start off. In 1999, Ram Charan wrote this groundbreaking article for Fortune magazine. This has motivated my work for the last 15 years. You know, CEOs stumble because of poor execution, and I've been working on solving this problem. So this book, Rhythm, is all about answering this particular question. And the key is in the leading part, you know. The key is in CEOs leading their teams to execute, because it isn't really about whether the CEOs can or cannot execute. It's whether the CEO has put the right habits, the process, the discipline in place that allows him or her to lead the team to execute well, so that we can have breakthroughs in our execution instead of stumbling. And we've been very fortunate. We've had the privilege over the last few years of serving more than 100 companies all over the world on all continents except for the Antarctica. And so because of this, we got lots of patterns of execution, lots of research in our system. And we've noticed the following, you know, many companies actually execute worse when you hire more people as they grow. I mean, you would like that when you hire people as you grow, that the people will actually help you execute better. You know, but unfortunately, it's sometimes can be the other way around, that you actually execute worse. So what happens to? Hey Ryan, you can't see my slides?
I don't think your slides are advancing, so maybe your presentation is paused. So you might want to hit play on sharing your screen so we can see your slides advance.
It says show. It says. I don't know. Is it still stuck, or can you see it now?
Yeah, maybe you should stop the sharing and start it again. That might help it get going.
All right.
See a beautiful sunset.
You see a beautiful sunset. All right.
That's better. Why don't you advance one just to make sure it advances this time?
Okay. I'm going to go backwards one.
All right. That worked.
Forward one. See that?
That's beautiful. All right.
All right.
Keep going, my friend.
Great. All right. Sorry for the technical difficulties, guys. So what I was saying is that we've had the privilege of serving more than 100 companies all over the world, and we've seen from our patterns that that many actually execute worse as more and more people join their team. So we asked the question, you know, why is that? And we've noticed that why? Because people get bigger, more national, more complexity, and then losing of clarity. And so oftentimes also when planning is done with the executive team, that plan is not cascaded to the departments and other team levels. And maybe just because we're not used to so many different levels in our organization as we grow bigger. And so this breakdown in communications causes some confusion, and that's why they execute worse. However, our research has showed that the clients that we have that execute very well has had this rhythm of thinking, planning, and doing. And so we call this our think, plan, and do rhythms. You know, Jim Collins in his book Great by Choice taught that all great companies need to have strong discipline, specific, measurable, and consistent. He talks about his 20-mile march. So we found that our clients who have a strong rhythm that lets them do this 20-mile march actually are very successful. So quick example, AvidXchange. AvidXchange is a software company, has grown consistently from 0 to 30+ million over the last 12 years by having a consistent rhythm. So they had a think rhythm to work on the future growth moves, even when growth was strong. Many companies don't do that. Instead, most companies write out their growth moves and then look for new ones as the old ones are exhausted, and that's not very helpful. But AvidXchange had a regular think rhythm to continually work on their growth moves. And then their plan rhythm focused them on what's important, helped them to focus on what are the key things to do, and every quarter they viewed it as a 13-week race. A 13-week race for the quarter, and I cover that in chapter 7 of the book. And then finally, the do rhythm helps them maintain a strong and consistent 20-mile march every single week. They are focused, aligned, and accountable to their plan, and they make adjustments every single week. So we asked in the polling questions, how often do you guys make adjustments? And I'm going to show you why I want to see us make adjustments every single week. The book is divided into 3 parts. According to these 3 rhythms, chapters 1 to 4 help you think, 5 through 8 help you with plan, and 9 through 11 helps you with do. And so today I'm going to share 4 key difference makers, some key points from the book on why companies just like us execute better than others. I'll give you a few tools to help you get going based on this research that we have. I think Ryan shared that hopefully these tools were emailed to you. If not, you can also download it from my site. So the first thing, difference maker number 1 is you got to have regular think time, because growth strategies take time. You just can't birth one tomorrow just because you need one. And oftentimes I've seen companies get stressed because they need something to grow, and they just don't have that in the toolkit. And so what you want to do is get into a regular rhythm of thinking. And you want to plan, by the way, for lots of, people plan for infrastructure, leadership, all kinds of things. But lots of times we forget to plan for winning moves, especially if our current growth moves are working really well. It's kind of like, why do I need anything else if what I have is working so great? Well, the big answer, or the real answer, is you need something else because you need that next piece for you to grow to, as your current winning move may kind of expire over time. So remember, you just can't poop out a new winning move overnight. You got to work on it regularly. And so I want to ask you, do you have winning moves that can double your company in 3 to 5 years? And I want to give you a simple process. Steve Jobs shared about the importance of simplicity, and I want to give you a simple framework to help you choose and work on your winning moves. So here's a simple framework. If you take a look at the projects that you have or the strategies you have, I would rate it on 2 axes. The first axis, the vertical axis, is on impact. How impactful are your current winning moves? And by the way, I know I'm with a bunch of EO guys and gals, so please type in your questions along the way, and Ryan will take them for me. So first axis is your impact. How impactful is your winning move from 1 to 10, 10 being the most impactful, 1 being the least impactful. Then the second question I'll ask of every winning move you have, or any growth move you have, is how easy is it to do? And I use the word easy, but it incorporates expense, all kinds of other things. So, I give you more points if it's easy, because that's good. So more points is good. So if it's easy, you get more points. And you see this chart, number 10 would be like moving things along as well as learning new skills, and 1 would be very rare, very hard to do because it's expensive, or you even need new capabilities. So I would rate your growth moves from 1 to 10 for both impact and how easy it is to do it. Then I would plot it. When you plot it, you end up on this 4-quadrant chart. I cover this in chapter 2 about winning moves. And so what you see is that your best ideas, your high impact ideas and easier to do, end up in the top right quadrant, the green quadrant, called winning moves. And then other things which may be very high impact but more expensive or harder to do end up in what I call expensive winning moves. I use the word expensive because resources are expensive, time is expensive, so I don't just mean spending money, but it could also be your time and your resources. Now, just because something is expensive doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't do them. In fact, if it causes you to have a great advantage over your competitor, if it builds barriers to entry or barriers to exit for your customers, that might be a really, really good winning move. The Apple Store today is a wonderful, expensive winning move for Apple. They're doing great with that. And competitors who have tried to copy that have not really succeeded, or folks don't even try to copy because it's just too expensive to do. So expensive winning moves are not a bad thing. Unfortunately, sometimes we find things in the red quadrant down below, losing moves and cheap losing moves. They take up energy. Instead, they could be focused on high impact ideas. So I find that I get anyway, emotionally attached to ideas in the red quadrant, especially if I came up with them. So we need a way to stop that. So hopefully this process will help you to take the emotion out, put objectivity in, and then help you to focus on winning moves. So I have a take-home exercise for you guys to work with. This is the typical process I use when I'm doing a deep dive session. I would do this exercise. We're not going to do it on the webcast, but feel free to do this with your team. 5 minutes to discuss your objective, do some independent work, brainstorm ideas as a team, and then debate and rate it from 1 to 10 on both scales, plot it, and then make your decisions. Okay, you can download this from patrickthean.com. Over here you see the Winning Moves tool. That's the one. That's the one that I just showed you. But hopefully you got that in the email. Next question is, how do I know my winning move actually works? So you want to test before you overcommit. I've got so many horror stories from myself as well as other customers who have overcommitted on their growth moves only to find a year or two later and a couple $1 million later that they were not good winning moves. So how do we do that? How do we test before we jump in with both feet? And Jim Collins teaches in Great by Choice to test with bullets. Bullets versus your cannonballs. And so I call these using assumptions. So for example, let's think of some assumptions you would have. So one example would be if you have a new product or service, one assumption that is very typical is X% of your existing customers will buy and Y% of your new customers will buy. So one of our clients did this, a new product or service, and they had these two assumptions. And they thought 50% of the customers would buy. And they found out after they went and tested that actually only 10% of the existing customers wanted to buy the new product or the new service in this case. And we had to ask questions about why that is, and it turned out that the existing customers just pigeonholed them already, and they didn't see them as being able to provide the other service. And they thought 10% of the new customers will buy. But the good news here in that assumption is that they found that more like north of 60-70% of the new customers actually wanted the new product or service. And they thought about that and they asked questions, and they discovered that was because the new customers were new to them. So they didn't pigeonhole them in any product or category yet and was willing to buy both products and services. So it was good to have that assumption and then figure out, you know, how does that actually work for them. So these go into your financial model, guys. So, you know, if you have VCs, if you have other people funding your company, you really need to test your winning move ideas, think through your assumptions, which end up being stuff on your financial models before you commit to those models. Because once you commit to those models, your financial stakeholders hold you accountable to that. So assumptions actually make these winning moves or losing moves. So you want to test the assumption. So here's another tool I have for you as a gift. You know, you can use this as well to kind of validate your assumptions. What you're doing here is pick your winning move, project your revenue over the next 4 or 5 years, and then document your assumptions. By the way, I've gotten questions before about this, and people have asked me, "Hey, Patrick, you know, you're all focused on revenue. You know, what about profit?" I would do the same thing. If you have some moves that really help you with profit, you could have, you know, winning moves to help you with profit, and just rate it in a way that makes sense for you to discuss profit in an objective way as compared to all the other winning moves that you're playing with. So, Ryan, I think this is a good time for us to see if there are questions that have come in. I'd love to just take a break before I go to difference maker number 2.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. If you have questions, please submit them using the questions control panel. We do have a couple of questions already. So the first is, what role do you see technology playing in a company's growth strategy?
That's a good question. Well, it depends on the type of company, right? If it's a software technology company, it would play a different role. But let's say it's a supportive role, then I would say that technology needs to provide support to execute on winning moves for growth, especially for scalability as the company grows. That you want to make sure your winning moves are also profitable and scalable for you. So technology these days, I think, plays a great role in helping winning moves be scalable.
Thanks, and I've got another question here. It says, what do you do if you have moves that fall in the low impact, you know, the 2 red quadrants in your winning moves chart? What do you do?
Well, that's a tough one, you know. That's a tough one. I've unfortunately had many scars from that as well. It's hard to stop these low impact moves because it's emotional. Nobody wants to consider that they've already spent X dollars and stop something. However, there's no easy answer. I would challenge you to stop them and then put your energy towards working on discovering or creating high impact moves. I think we often don't think about the opportunity cost of our energy being spent on low impact moves. And so hopefully the chart that I showed you earlier will help you think through that objectively and then choose to stop low impact moves and work on high impact moves.
Got another question. Which software tools do you recommend to track and monitor KPIs across the organization, and how expensive do they usually run is the question from Arun.
Okay, well, software tools, you know, if you are a smaller company or a smaller team in one location, you can use Excel to track your KPIs and status every week. We, of course, at Rhythm Systems have a tool called Rhythm that we use to track priorities and KPIs, and there are other tools out there as well. They run a variety of costs, though, so depends on what you're looking for. But there's a bunch of dashboard tools out there that can help you as well.
That's all the questions for now, Patrick. Let's
okay, great. Let's move to difference maker number 2. So I really love to have strong quality plans with the purpose, though, of running a great 13-week race. So the companies that are really successful with their execution, what they do is they view the quality plans as though they're running a 13-week race. And, you know, the only way to have a great year is to have 4 great quarters. And then the only way to have a great quarter is to have 13 great weeks. So to do that, you kind of need to have 1 great week at a time, you know, just one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, and then you have 13 great weeks. So think of your quarter as a 13-week race. You've got to explode off the blocks. You've got to react fast to beat your competitors, and you want to have as many opportunities as possible to actually make the right adjustments. And so if you look at a great plan, it's great to have KPIs. And for a webcast today, I want to focus on the concept of leading indicators. Leading indicators are predictive, forward-looking, key performance indicators, you know, KPIs, that can help you drive the results that you want. So I'm going to take you through a quick 4-step process. A 4-step process, this is covered in Chapter 8 of my book. You want to look through, first, what is your main business problem? If you're not clear on your business problem or opportunity, you won't get the right KPIs. And then you want to know what is the result you're looking for. What is your desired outcome, so that you can begin with the end in mind. And then you want to know, how will you actually measure these results? And then finally, how would you track it how would you know, if you are on track? And so being on track is really key, so you can make the right adjustments so you can win at the end of your 13 weeks. So this is another tool I'm giving you today that should have hopefully been emailed to you, and it's going to take you through this 4-step process. So I'm just going to do a quick demo to show you how to use this tool. And I'm going to use sales, because, you know, we all want sales, and sales is an easy example for me to put in here. So let's just say that our goal is we want to make quota every quarter, okay? And that's the problem we're trying to solve. So I wrote down, achieve my sales quota every quarter. And so the desired outcome is I need this engine. I need an engine that does that, so that every quarter sales happens, and you know, the more automatic, the better. So how will I look at the results now? Next step is let's look at the result. At the end of the day, all this activity and engine stuff is great, but not great if we don't actually close sales. So how will we actually measure the results? So in this case, we'll choose to say that it's the number of dollars closed. Some people would say number of contracts. In this case, I'll say number of dollars closed. And I think that's really important to visualize and discuss with your team. So in this case, we'll say dollars closed. And then I want us to talk about the success criteria. And I found that red, yellow, green, for those guys who have heard me speak before, you know I'm the red, yellow, green guy. So I like to do my goals with red, yellow, green. Green is the goal, what you're shooting for. And then red is unacceptable performance, it's failure. Yellow is in between, and then for my A players, I like to give them super green. And the red thing, you know, I was doing a keynote a while back, and the head of sales came up to me and said, Patrick, I want to thank you for this gift of red. And I asked him what he meant by that, and he said that he realized that when you set a red number, it's not a goal, by the way, it's just the lower level of acceptable performance. He believed, and he did see later, that his team members would actually work themselves away from red. Another one of our clients called this the pride level. He said, you know, we should have this red thing be the pride level. You shouldn't be performing below this level. So get your red, yellow, green success criteria. Once you've done that, you've pretty much made your result smart. And so in this example, I have have green as 1 million, and then red is 750,000, yellow is in between, and then super green is 1.25 million. So this is how we'll measure the results. So here's the fun part. Next, you want to go get your leading indicator. And so you want to ask questions about what are the things that you should look at to know that you're on track to receive these sales dollars. And so you want to dig deep. You want to ask a lot of questions, at least 5 questions. Lots of people typically stop at about 3 questions, and I'd say, you want to dig deeper, because what happens is you want to go deep enough to find the root cause of your success and then measure that and put a leading indicator on that. So you want to dig deeper. I found that the best stuff happens when you hit about 5 questions. So don't stop at 3. Just keep digging. And so going back to my exercise tool, you should have a leading indicator. In this example, number of customer product demos, and then you red, yellow, green it. So in this case, what this means is, hey, I got to do 2 product demos a week. Will be my goal. If I do 0, that will be a bad thing. If I do 4, that will be a great thing. And so, in other words, the leading indicator tells me if I'm on track. If I'm not doing enough product demos every week for this company, then I should not expect to hit my sales number. So that's wonderful in a way, in that if I get this warning 3 to 4 weeks into the quarter, I know I got 10 or 9 weeks to react and save my quarter versus finding out towards the end that not hitting my numbers close. That's why I'm so focused on leading indicators. And then finally, check to see that you have useful leading indicators. Your leading indicators needs to predict the right results. And then secondly, it's got to be something within your control. If you cannot influence the leading indicator, pick another one. Pick another one. I'm going to give you one more example for leading indicators, because I've been asked a number of times to give a marketing example, and so I'll give you one from my own closet. So this is actually what we do at Rhythm Systems. We want leads from digital marketing. We do a lot of digital marketing, and so our result is very simple. We just want more leads. But our leading indicator is we actually are a education-based marketing type company. So we teach a lot. We publish a lot of great content on our blogs. And so number of blogs per week, if we're not blogging enough and not putting wonderful content to our clients out there and prospects out there enough, then our leads may not come. So this is a leading indicator for us. So at Rhythm Systems, we actually don't focus on the leads as much as we focus on powering on the number of blogs. So that's our leading indicator. And of course, you can get this tool at my website as well, but hopefully it's been emailed to you. So Ryan, now's a good time for us to pause for a couple of questions as well.
Right, sounds good. So if you have questions, please submit them in the questions control panel tool. We do have a few to get started with. So one question is, what recommendations can you suggest to encourage accountability within an organization?
Well, in Chapter 7, I talk about a 13-week race. So having the concept of running a race will improve accountability. If everyone understands that they have a part in the race, think of it as a relay race over 13 weeks, and you have to play a part in that so that your team can win. That already helps. And then I really believe in the red, yellow, green success criteria. When you go and you status something, you say, hey, it's red, yellow, or green. There should be objective criteria behind that so that we can then have a meaningful discussion. And I'll talk about this in the Do Rhythm section, that if we have a problem or something that goes red, we want to make the right adjustments so that we can win as a team.
Got another question here. The question is this: we have a team that's pretty set in its ways. What's your advice for maintaining momentum when starting new processes with a team like that that's really set in its ways?
Well, set in its ways is a tough one, right? First, you got to gain momentum before you can maintain momentum. So I'll ask you actually if your team actually has momentum. But nothing beats having a great plan. If you have a great execution plan and you write down the goals, but not just the goals. I'll take your execution plan one step further. I would look at each priority and consider writing down the first 3 to 5 milestones to aim for. This will then give you a path of progress. And when people can see this path of progress made clear with milestones, it's a little easier to have momentum and maintain that momentum as you execute towards that.
Yeah, I got one more here. It's this question is: what are 1 or 2 things you see companies do that sabotage successful execution?
Okay, so sabotage, that's kind of a tough word, Ryan. I think it could be unintentional sabotage, maybe, so something happens, I use the word unintentional. What happens is that sometimes when we don't plan together as a team, planning together as a team is huge. People get blindsided if they don't have the resources to support things that they're being asked to do. And so some of that resistance could appear like sabotage when in fact it may just be a lack of planning together. It may just be that we didn't align our resources, and so I'll take a look at that. Maybe folks just need to be more involved in planning and understand how to get aligned.
Okay, that's all the questions for now. Let's keep moving.
Okay, so we talk about difference maker number 3, and this actually relates to that last question about sabotage, interestingly enough. I say here that your plan is not complete until it is cascaded to your teams and departments, and so this is what I call a minor major. A minor major is something that is a minor change that could give you a major result. And what I've noticed is that most people stop planning at the executive team level. In other words, the executive team figures out the plan, and then we give the plan to our departments and say, hey, let's go make this thing happen. So the minor major is this, for true and complete alignment, the folks who do the work need to actually know what to do, and they also need to actually see themselves in a strong vision doing that work. So drew this picture for you guys, that if you don't plan the team, this is what happens. CEO and executive team, they kind of get it, and then the staff doesn't totally get it. So planning with your teams is actually magical. I find that it's a communication and a passion thing. If you just give your team a plan, they may not understand the why behind the plan. And if you want to engage our brains, you want your folks to be more engaged. And it's good, in the poll, it looked like 75%, you believe that 75% of your employees are well engaged, and that's great. So how do we take it up to 100%? Well, they may not understand the why behind the plan. And so if you plan with your teams versus just give them the plan, it'll help them connect the dots. And that is a huge minor major. So take the time, slow down, plan with your teams. This allows you to go much faster during the quarter. The outcome, if you've done that well, is that every department or team should have their set of priorities and milestones that they can actually see and have great clarity, even visualize how those items connect to the plan for the company for the quarter. So if I'm in a finance department, I want to understand the few things that I'm doing, how that actually helps the company achieve its quarterly theme, achieve its quarterly goals, and helps win that 13-week race. So I want everyone focused on the same main thing, and I want everyone running this, running a quarterly, a 13. And so difference maker number 4 is in chapter 11 of the book, and we talk about weekly adjustments versus weekly status meetings. And so I asked earlier in the poll, how many of you, how often did you actually adjust or review your plan? And I got different, I think, Ryan, you said some people said weekly, some monthly, some quarterly, right? So, so weekly meetings are very expensive, and I asked the polling question that way because, I wonder whether most of us have weekly meetings. So first of all, do you have a weekly meeting? And if you have a weekly meeting, do you use that weekly meeting to actually make adjustments to your execution so that you can achieve your plan for the 13-week race? So weekly meetings are very expensive. This is a meeting where you have all your executives in. Time's very expensive. So when we meet a lot of companies and we ask them about their weekly meetings, they tell me that they're often status meetings. Most of the time, let's say 80% is working on statuses. This is on the right gray box here. And to me, when you're working on statuses, you're focused on the past. You're trying to review what has happened and what the individual focus on status really means. Now, I'm not suggesting you should look at the past. What I am suggesting is that you can make your expensive weekly meeting significantly more productive if everyone pre-status, prepared for this meeting, looked at not just your status, but your teammates' status as well, read it, think on it, and then when you come to the weekly meeting, change that weekly meeting. So it's not a status meeting, but it's a meeting to work on solutions. How prepared you are depends on how good your weekly meeting could be, and a great weekly adjustment meeting could really help your execution that week. So, so the key thing is to have the right discussion. So come and have the right discussions. Be prepared to discuss solutions. If you do that, imagine, right, you could have 80% of your time in your weekly meeting focus on solutions. So how would this work? Well, how this would work is that you begin the meeting and you look at where you are for the quarter, and you ask yourselves, okay, here we are for the quarter, and how are we going to actually achieve our goal in this 13-week race? And if we're not, if certain things are status red or yellow, now's the time for us to figure that out. Now's the time for us to work on that and take the time to come up with solutions. So that's how I would transform your weekly meeting to weekly adjustments. And then I would encourage everybody who answered that, you make adjustments monthly or quarterly to change that and to make your adjustments weekly. And here's why. It's a 13-week race. If you look at it every single week and make adjustments to hit your plan, you've got 13 opportunities to look at that and figure out if you're going to hit your plan. If you do it monthly, you only really have 2 opportunities, right? You begin the quarter. At the end of the first month, you have an opportunity to review and make an adjustment. At the end of the second month, you have an opportunity to review and make an adjustment. And then after that, the last 4 weeks, and then your quarter's finished. So you only have 2 opportunities. If you review things for making adjustments every month, you only have 2 opportunities to actually make an adjustment. So I'm not suggesting, guys, that you should adjust things every single week. I'm only suggesting that you should review it every single week, and then if you're given the need to make an adjustment, why wait for the end of the month? You can make it earlier, make it on week 2, week 3, week 6, week 7. Why wait for the end of the month? So as you think about your 13-week race, I want you to run your 13-week race, and I want you to have a 13-week dashboard that accompanies this race. You want a status before your weekly meeting, and then you want to be accountable every week. So accountability is a tough word. When I talk about accountability, sometimes people get worried and they think, okay, this is going to be a tough meeting. We're going to have people accountable. We're going to whack their heads. And so you don't need my help to whack heads, by the way. Most of us are, unfortunately, natural-born head whackers. So I don't want us to bash heads. I want us to think of accountability as giving us an opportunity to adjust our goals and KPIs, adjust our execution, not adjust the goal, but adjust execution towards those goals so that we can achieve our plan for the quarter. So dashboards don't solve problems, people do. And in order to solve problems, you got to have the right dashboards accompanying the right discussions. And so you want to have the right discussions. And so what I mean is that if you're statusing every week and you hit this red square like I'm showing in this page here, you want to then have the discussions to come up with ideas and how do we actually solve that problem. So that's what you want to spend your time doing. And you can't do that. You can't do that if you don't have accountability. So some of this I'm suggesting is a change in our culture thinking, that accountability is not for us to whack you on the head. Accountability is for us to have an opportunity as a team to solve that problem. And by the way, if you have that open culture of inviting folks to let you know when they're having difficulties with the red and the yellows, that gives you actually more time to solve your problems. So the 2 types of adjustments I look for every single week in the weekly meetings. The first one is the one I'm showing you, which is, hey, where are the reds and yellows? What are the things that we have to do better so we can make things work? The second type of adjustments, which are much harder to find, but so much more valuable, I call them bright spots. Bright spots. So bright spots are victories that actually can be repeated and scaled. So let me give you an example of a victory. Hey, we closed a $1 million deal. That's great. That's a victory. Let's celebrate that, man. But I don't think of that as a bright spot. A bright spot would be, hey, we closed a $1 million deal because we did this one thing, and we've learned something from this one thing, and now we can go teach all our salespeople how to do this one thing, and by doing so, now the entire sales force knows how to close $1 million deals. So in other words, a bright spot is a victory that can be repeated and can be scaled across your company. I want to give you an example of one. So you got this teddy bear here, right? Because I want to share with you about one of our clients, Image First. They're a linen laundry company in the healthcare industry. They service a lot of outpatient clinics. And in the sales process, so they go to these outpatient clinics and they have meetings with the office manager. If they can't get meetings, they don't get sales. So they actually measure, they look at the number of meetings they have. And so one day, Bill, their head of sales, went for one of these meetings, and he brought with him a teddy bear, and he got the usual response, which is, hey, can I speak to Sally, please? And I'm sorry, Sally can't talk to you right now. She's busy, but leave your card, leave your name, and she'll call you back. And this one day, Bill brought a teddy bear, and Bill said, thank you, but please give Sally this gift, right? Give her this teddy bear, and I'll call her back. And then he leaves, and as he's walking to his car, the receptionist comes running out and says, hey, Bill, Sally got off the phone. She's willing and able to see you. So he went back, and he had a meeting with Sally. And he said, Patrick, I did this a couple of times, and every time, people would come running out to say, hey, please come back. So-and-so is ready to see you now. And he said, I'm not very smart, but I figured it out. So as I leave the clinic now, I walk slowly to my car so that people can catch up with me. So this teddy bear thing, that's a bright spot. And so when Bill brought that back to his sales team, they discussed it. And that particular year, everyone at Image First started carrying teddy bears. So that's a bright spot that scaled and helped them to significantly increase their number of meetings, which then helped them with their sales. So here's the thing about bright spots, though. You don't get them often, and you have to actively look for them or you will miss them. And I think that getting a bright spot is a lot more important than fixing a red in general. There are some reds that you don't fix them, you'll die. So go fix your reds, but don't forget to look for the bright spots so you can make these positive adjustments to help you. So it's a good time for me to check for any questions after I've shared these 4 insights, Ryan.
Okay. Yeah, so if you have questions, please put those into the control panel for us so that we can answer them for you. We had this one come in just as you were leaving the last section on plan. This question is, in planning, how do you balance between urgent and important? Sounds like Covey language there. How do you balance between urgent and important in planning?
Yeah, so that's a really good, and that's really hard to do without understanding your exact circumstance of urgent versus important. And Covey also has his 4 quadrants, right? And since you brought up Covey, Ryan, I do love Covey's 4 quadrants, where he maps urgent and important as the 2 axes. So the first question I ask is, the stuff that's urgent, is it urgent and important, or is it just urgent? Because sometimes when things are very urgent, I call it the tyranny of the urgent, it makes us think that it's actually very important. Sometimes I'll slow down, look at what's urgent, and realize that some of these things which are really urgent were really not that important, and maybe I don't have to do them. So but in my planning, I want us to be proactive, right? I want us to have more fire prevention versus firefighting. And so, the winning moves thing that I showed you earlier, you could do something very similar. In fact, a lot of my clients do that in the execution planning. They take that same winning moves screen that I showed you. I'm going to go back to it real quick, Ryan. This one. So you can actually use this chart, and you can actually plot your different projects, and you can change the axes to urgent and important. And then you can plot it, and you can kind of figure out, okay, where are they, and how easy it is to do these things, and how hard is it to do these things, and how impactful is it, to then after that then discuss how urgent it is. So I'm hoping that all the priorities you tend to choose need to be important. And then once you've figured it out, then you figure out, okay, well, I don't know, urgent means house is burning, so let's go put out the fire, right? So urgent always wins if it is really important as well. Now, if you get into a problem where it's always urgent, then I think it's systematic. Then that's a different question. So if you're finding yourself always in urgent, then it's systematic. Then you may have to take a longer look at what you're doing.
Thanks, Patrick. Here's another question. It says, many of my team members want to grow, but they want to do so without becoming corporate, in the sense that they lose their ability to be agile. How can they do both?
So I've discovered that smaller planning cycles actually give you the ability to adjust and adapt. And I don't know that if you would think of that as agile, but I do think of that as agile. I think that if you can actually adjust and adapt faster, you actually are showing more agility. So the first thing I would say is planning cycles that are shorter. So this plan rhythm of 13 weeks, every 13 weeks, and then the do rhythm will definitely help you to be agile. Big doesn't mean not agile, by the way. We've helped large companies do this as well. I mean, a couple of our biggest clients are about $1 billion in revenue. And in fact, one of the things they wanted to do is they wanted to be agile. And so we introduced this concept of planning every quarter, which initially kind of upset their system a little bit. But once they got used to it, it actually helped them to be more agile.
Right. Another question is, how do you communicate a sense of urgency with an undermotivated sales team?
So I cannot help you motivate people who are not motivated. So, you know, the real question is, why are they not motivated? And oftentimes we blame people quickly. You know, we go, okay, people aren't motivated. So I don't really know your circumstance, but I do know that we should at least ask if our environment that we're providing is putting obstacles in their way, or if it's helping them. So what I mean is, let's look at our environment. Those are the things that we can control as leaders, and let's make sure that we're not putting anything that are obstacles in the way of our people being motivated. Let me give you a couple of examples. You know, like for example, I've seen oftentimes that the sales team may not have a compensation plan that is ready for them. In other words, hey, it's February, it's March, but my comp plan isn't done yet. I see that happen a lot with companies who are moving very quickly. And it's really hard to work and be motivated if I don't know how I'm getting paid properly. I don't know if what I'm doing is aligned with my success and the way I'm getting compensated. So those are things in your environment. Another example would be, do they have the tools to be successful? One suggestion I have is to ask your salespeople to think about this every week or every month and email you a list of obstacles that are in their path. And then you can see, you know, are there true obstacles in their path, tools they need, you know, things that they can't seem to get, you know, hey, every time I ask for something on this nature, I just don't get it, you know. So I would find out the obstacles in their path that are hurting them. So I would look at my environment first.
Okay, that's all the questions for now. Let's move along.
Okay, so I'm almost at the end of our hour here because I wanted to leave some time for actually more questions from the group. So one last insight I want to share with you guys is when we've run this 13-week race, I've noticed, you know, our patterns show, because like I said, you know, we've got 150,000 plus priorities in our system, and we can see the patterns of what people are doing. And we've noticed that one of the patterns is that right around weeks 4, 5, and 6, things tend to fall off the wagon. And people have asked me why, and I don't really want to spend time on why. It may be because, you know, we created the plan and did not have a clear vision of how to execute. And in the first couple of weeks we think we're okay, and then suddenly week 4 comes and we realize a month has gone by, and then now we get anxious. What I do know, though, is to solve this, you have 2 opportunities to solve this. One is that when you do your plan for the quarter, your 13-week race, I would write down 3 key milestones for each priority. If you cannot write down your key milestones, that probably means you cannot visualize how to get it done. And if you cannot visualize or see it, you probably can't do it. So what happens is, if you cannot write down the 3 key milestones and you can't see it, you might just procrastinate, right? And then when you procrastinate, unfortunately, you have less time to solve these problems. So if we look at your priorities for the quarter, if you don't think, or you're not quite sure how to do it, ask for help in week 0. Ask for help in week 0. Make sure you can write down 3 key milestones for that priority. Then the second thing I'll do is, you know, in weeks 4, 5, and 6, that's when I'll really pay attention to the status. You know, when people status something green, I would ask them to share with me why it's green, how it's green, and how confident they are of its greenness. So I would check on that during weeks 4, 5, and 6, and then I wouldn't whack people on the heads. I would humbly suggest that you get together with your team, be supportive. It's week 4 or 5, something went from green to red. Great, thanks for sharing that early with me. We still have, you know, 2 months of the quarter to fix it. So let's get together and solve that problem. So that should help you with execution. And one last thought I had is, guys, I shared with you 4 key difference makers today, but nothing happens if nothing happens, right? So I would encourage you guys to take one action from the 4 things that I shared with you today. Either get into a regular think rhythm, or build a stronger quality plan. Start thinking of your quality plan like a 30-week race and run a great one. Or, decide to plan with your teams. It's the start of the quarter right now, and we're early in the quarter, I should say, not start. We're in the early part of the quarter. So make sure your teams really, really understand your plans, and then consider changing your weekly meetings, not status, but to adjustments. In fact, one of my clients immediately went out and changed the name of his meeting to adjustment meetings, and just by changing the name, it psychologically, changed the perspective of folks coming to that meeting. So with that, I have time for some questions. And by the way, I want to thank you guys. And we have a blog over here, rhythmsystems.com blog, and we got lots of good stuff there if you need more help. But right now, I'd love to see if there's any other questions, Ryan, before we wrap up our webcast.
No, we haven't had any other questions come in during the last segment. So I think we're ready to wrap up. Any closing remarks, Patrick?
I wanted to see if Pam had anything for us before we say goodbye.
No, I'm good here on my side. Just remember to fill out the survey as soon as I send it at the completion of this webinar. And then we do, inside the email I send you, there's going to be a link for our archives. So if you wanted to share this with some of your colleagues or rewatch it just to get a sense of it again, it'll be up there in a couple of weeks.
All right. Well,
Great.
Thanks so much,
Great.
Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam and EO, and all of you for joining us today. This concludes the webcast for today. Please help us by taking the survey you'll receive from EO in the follow-up email. And you can find more learning and valuable tools on our website at www.rhythmsystems.com. Again, thank you very much, and hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.